so excited to be here today. This is a long anticipated event that we have been waiting for, and it is all things GTM engineering. We're going to be digging into where this career path came from, what's the future, where does this apply to salespeople. A ton of content we're going to cover today in a very short period of time. But first and foremost, wanted to say thank you to the Clay team for co-sponsoring this event together. We are going to have a few other events throughout this year, and we are super excited about our new partnership. My name is Alexine Mudawar. I am CEO of Women in Sales. We are the largest global community for women in the field of sales. We provide educational resources, events, in person, virtual, anything that's going to serve you within your sales career. We are there to offer it to you. So for all of you that are just joining us, we think of a cool icebreaker. We would love to hear your definitions of GTME, but also if that's too much pressure, just drop your name. Let us know where you're joining from. We always like to hear where everybody's coming in from. And we already got a Chicago person. Love to see it. So, so to kick things off here, I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves really quickly, and we'll just do this kind of hot potato style. So Dorothy, let's start with you.
Hey guys, my name's Dorothy. I let's see my background, how I got into GTME. I was one of those very annoying SDRs, AE reps who was like very keen on data points and how systems worked. So at some point I became like a founding go-to-market rep at Lavender, built out their outbound function, and I also did that at Gretel and found Clay through that to scale myself, and eventually got this role, and now actually started out in CX and then transitioned to the GTME side. So I've seen a lot of things, and I'm excited to share.
Awesome. So happy you're here. What about you, Ashley?
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're super excited about this. I'm Ashley. I'm also a go-to-market engineer here at Clay. My, I guess, entry to this career path was, I would say, non-traditional, but you're going to hear in a couple of minutes about how the actual role itself is pretty non-traditional. So it's actually pretty within the norm. I was a co-founder of a startup that basically helped people make career changes through sort of like this systematic lens and process. So I think a lot in process. I've never been in SaaS myself, but I've been kind of SaaS adjacent. I was one of the first 5 team members of SV Academy. For those of you who are familiar with SV Academy, worked a lot on the curriculum design. And so my background is actually more curriculum design and kind of people change versus anything to do with SaaS. But I think there are a lot of kind of no code and low code tools that made me kind of think about things from a better lens. And that's kind of how I made myself kind of here today.
Awesome. So happy to have you. We are matching it up. Everybody else had a hat, so I grabbed a green hat too, and here we are. Tong, what about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tong. I clearly didn't get the hat memo, so pardon me. So grateful to be here, and especially to be in a community of other kick-ass women. We need more spaces like this in the world, so thank y'all so much. I, like Ashley and Dorothy, have a pretty windy path of arriving at Clay as well. I came from having more of a heavy sales background and admittedly not a formal technical background. And yet I was still able to find success in this role as a GTM engineer, and now I have the pleasure of serving as the GTM engineering manager for one of our sales teams. So in my so far, I've sold everything from organic produce to tobacco to luxury vehicles. I've been an organic farmer. I've been part of the founding team of a solar software startup that ended up exiting, worked at Shopify and Tesla. And ultimately, Clay is by far the most dynamic and fulfilling place that I've worked. And I think a large part due to the creativity and how dynamic this role is. So excited to dive more into that. And yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome. So happy to have all of you. And we have one more important person who's in the audience, and that's Akbar Khan. I see here. If you have Clay questions throughout this event, we're going to be yapping up here. So throw those into the chat. Burr is in there, is going to take great care of you. So just want to make sure you knew that there's a resource that's looking out. But to start this conversation off, I think the best place to start is we didn't see too many people respond and what does GTME mean? And frankly, I'm one of those people where I wouldn't know how to respond. So that's why we're hosting this event. So Ashley, I think it'd be a great place for you to kick us off and just let us know, what is GTM Engineer? Where did it come from? Give us a little context for today's conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start off with what it is and then kind of back up into kind of how it came to be, because those things are very connected. But the way we like to think about go-to-market engineering here at Clay is combining kind of strategic level thinking, combining that with creative kind of go-to-market strategies. So in a perfect day, if you're a go-to-market engineer, you can start your day by doing discovery calls, working with new customers. In the afternoon, it could be implementing clay tables, working with existing customers. And then the final part of your day could be learning about this brand new tool or this new integration that we pulled into Clay, or something kind of going on in the GTM space. So it's kind of combining a bunch of roles into kind of one more holistic role, which we call go-to-market engineering. So it's a little bit of like SDR work, RevOps, AE, and sales engineering. So it's kind of a Swiss knife, if you will.
Love it. The Swiss Army knife roll. For those of you who are in the audience with us today, how many of you are actually in go-to-market engineering roles today? I think that will be really interesting for us to contextualize today's conversation too. So just drop it in the chat if you are in one of these positions today. Big question, and I think perfect question for you, Dorothy, is you have held a lot of different roles. I knew you from multiple stages in your career. So it's so fun position here, and would love to just differentiate GTM engineering away from how it's different from the AE, RevOps, sales engineering. If you feel like it, we love talking about comp here in Women in Sales, like to get paid. So if you can even pull in the comp side, I think that'd be really interesting for us to hear about too.
Yeah, I think it differs. Okay, so I'm gonna back it up. So the question is, we want to talk about like the difference between like an AE and GTM engineer, right? I would say AEs are typically focused mainly on like their own pipeline and the closing aspects of things, whereas just like Ashley explained, like a GTME is a full like Swiss Army knife. We've got a lot of things going on, or at our heart, like the heart of it, we're nerds. I've got colleagues who take days off to test new integrations, and so it's more, I'd say, full cycle, and there's a lot of actually technical building that does happen in the background and understanding the full go-to-market system, which I think differentiates like the AE aspect from the GTME like looks the scope of like the work that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and this is helpful too. I actually saw some comments in the chat here. It seems like there's a little bit of a theme. There's people who are doing multiple of these roles and just underneath a different title. And so that's always fascinating to hear about. And then looks like there's even a couple of people who are officially in this role today. So I think part of the theme of this event and this conversation is we're going to continue to see this role evolve. We're going to continue to see new pathways in sales. So very par for the course. Can we have you dig in just a little bit deeper into the comp side, because I know we're always curious, and you don't have to go into specific numbers, but more so, is this in your mind, or for companies that you've seen, a commission-based role? Is it kind of, we see a lot of AE roles that have like a split in terms of how they comp the role. Do you what are the components, I guess, of the compensation?
Yeah, I could take a stab at answering this. I don't want to give you like false expectations. I think every company is going to be different of what they need from a GTME. Because for some of you guys, it's like, oh, you think it might be a solutions engineer, but it might also be a person that sits between like demand gen, SDR, and sales, who's building out like outbound plays and campaigns and connecting all of the systems. So, the famous, it depends. It really does depend on the organization, also the size of the company and like what they need. So it may include commission, it may not include commission.
Exciting. Okay. And if we know ourselves as salespeople and we're going to be coming into this role, maybe it does include commission, and we do a little bargaining to get there. So that'll be really interesting. And I promised I would do Q&A at the end, but we actually got a good question. And so I just wanted to kind of throw this into the mix here at the beginning of our conversation. Is this a role, and this could be for anyone that's on the panel here, is this a role you see popping up in SaaS companies across the board, or is Clay a bit of a trendsetter on this one, or a bit of an outlier?
We still on me? So much pressure.
Pretty much.
I can
Um,
answer if you want, Dorothy.
Yeah. Oh, or it could be both of us. I am seeing it start to pop up as this. I think it's going to be like ever evolving. Right now, yeah. I mean, I think Rashi mentioned it was like GTME skills could be strategy, copywriting, email campaigns, email deliverability. But also, again, like I mentioned, it's depends on the organization because it could be like you're handling all of growth, and so it's slowly starting to pop up, and Clay tends to be like the center of a lot of these roles. But I don't know. Maybe Ashley's got a different opinion. She's got these like gigantic enterprise accounts that they think differently.
No, I love the question. I think the answer is yes. I think it's popping up more and more. Whether people actually articulate it as a GTM engineer or they kind of think of it a different way. I do think GTM engineering is a skill. It can be a title, but I do think it's also first and foremost a skill. And I think like where we are just sort of like AI and systems building and how quickly we can move on things and test things. I think there's definitely been a shift across the board in almost every industry that we're doing things a little bit smarter and involving more data and kind of thinking about things from like a full cycle lens. So whether or not it's called GTM engineering, I do think it's becoming more and more a really important component of a revenue generating aspect of a company.
Love it. And great question from the audience here. If you have other questions, we are going to continue to take those. There's a tab called Q&A that's off to the right-hand side. So drop your Q&A questions in. If we do not get to them live on this event, because we have very little time, we're going to be taking those over to the Women in Sales Slack community. And we have a super secret, now not so secret channel in there, go-to-market engineering. So you can jump in there. We'll continue the conversation. All the folks that are on the panel today will be in there too. So we hope to start some really good dialogue over there as well. But Tong, it's time to bring you in. What skills does it take to be a successful go-to-market engineer?
That's a great question. And my response to this is going to likely differ from anyone else on my team that you asked. So I just want to caveat with this. Though I would say that there are a few things I've seen that kind of form this archetype of a thriving GTM engineer that I feel has a really bright future here and also finds a lot of deep fulfillment in their work. And so some of those attributes would be having a growth mindset. There is going to be so much that you don't know, you don't even know. So having kind of like this, making a choice to be comfortable in the discomfort, I think is going to save you a lot of heartache along the way. And if you embrace the journey of growth as something that you get excited about, that you are open to being humbled by, and you prefer teamwork action, I think that this would be a really phenomenal role. There is a great deal of self-awareness, I feel, that also plays into anyone who is in a high growth role, to where you're constantly self-assessing between what is my zone of genius? What are my spikes? What am I really, really, really good at doing? What are my zones of excellence that I can do quite well? And then my zones of competence and incompetence, and being really real with yourself. And so for myself, for instance, I can create an API integration with the help of ChatGPT and many hours of troubleshooting, but that's in my zone of competence, right? My zone of incompetence is doing any coding, and it's probably for the best that they don't let me touch the code base. And so for me to be aware of that, I can actually lean into doubling down on my strengths and filling in some of the other gaps of the team. So someone who traditionally, I think, AE roles or sales roles in tech organizations, there is a little bit more competitiveness simply because the incentives are around building your own pipeline, kind of achieving your own goals, et cetera. But this role is very different in nature in that it's impossible for any one GTME to have the entire product knowledge and all the selling skills, all the use cases, and to consistently update that knowledge bank. It's just unrealistic. So we need to be able to trust one another and to rely on one another, bring folks into the deal, to have that humility to be like, hey, that's a phenomenal use case. And to be quite frank, a bit different than what I personally helped stand up for one of my customers, but I have a colleague who has some more recent examples of that. Let me actually bring them in on the next call. Would you be okay with that? And to be able to have graceful moments where we're kind of leaning on one another in that way. So that's been pretty huge. And then, of course, having some technical acumen to where you can speak to technical and non-technical stakeholders and to be able to learn the product enough to where you are able to give thoughtful feedback in hopes of improving the product and the experience for all of their users. So that was a bit of a word salad, but hopefully that covered some bases there.
It absolutely did. We knew Dorothy was going to chop it up during this event. We just didn't know when. But yes, this is, yes, that was extremely helpful. You did mention that others may have like slightly a different opinion than you. Just curious, either of the other panelists, anything that you would add to what Tong Tong just shared?
I think this goes along with growth mindset, but just you have to love learning. I think the most important thing about being a really good GTM engineer is just your love for learning and your commitment to learning, because you have to stay on the forefront of all things revenue growth. And there's a lot, which is really fun and exciting, but also very challenging at the same time.
Absolutely. Awesome.
And something else I'd add, pardon me if I could, I forgot to mention creative problem solving, being able to infuse creativity into any kind of like consultative conversation, I think is massive. It immediately positions you to sit on the same side of the table as them. And with that also, I've noticed that individuals that delight in seeing the customers be delighted through the interaction and being able to take pride in providing value, this will be quite fulfilling for you if that's something that you already really, really enjoy. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, this is hard. We're getting really good Q&A questions, and I'm trying to keep us on the rigid pathway, but some of these are really good. Okay, so we're going to take a light detour. What kind of technical skills are required to become a GTM engineer? I think this is a really important question, and while we're talking about, general skills, this person asked from, this is Ria Singh, and they asked from the perspective of previously being an SD coming from a liberal arts background, for example, and would love to explore this role as a future career. So yeah, can you speak, can someone, it could be anyone on the panel, speak to more of the technical skill set required from what you've seen?
I feel like I speak to this, given that I do come from the SDR life. Oh yeah, the annoying SDR who was always poking around with RevOps and bugging my manager. I mean, Tong Tong knows I'm fun to work with sometimes. And I would say from like technical side, you want to know like all of the systems that go into your current tech stack. And then to the curiosity and learning piece is having like that hacker mindset on you, being able to like learn all different tools out there. Knowing like how to prompt engineer is a really big piece of this. And different LLMs, how they work could be some. I'm not like a pro at JavaScript, but like, bro, I can talk to ChatGPT all day, help me out to get me going, So I would say learning some sort of coding at least, and then knowing no code tools can help too, because at some point, right, you're going to want to bring in different APIs, maybe a little bit of SQL too, to bring in your data warehouse. So lots of different ways to look at this. But I would say those are some of the fundamentals on the technical side. And depending on the size of the organization, right, you're probably going to be plugging into the CRM. And so having some know-how of like Salesforce backend architecture or HubSpot. We love HubSpot, right? So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, and I think one thing to point out too, because I do think whenever we think about, oh, I have to have this really intense technical background. Well, I didn't go to school for this. This doesn't qualify. There are so many resources, academies, groups, communities where you can have access to resources to help you upskill in all these different areas. And so just bear that in mind too. I graduated from retail management. I had to learn to do some light coding as part of one of my sales roles. I struggled in a huge way with it. So I just want to be transparent about that, but I figured it out ultimately. And so there are a lot of resources out there. I think the TLDR is, if these are pathways that you're interested in, often there are educational opportunities that can help connect the dots, and the right companies will want to invest and help make that happen. So I think that is super helpful. Thank you. And one really great place to go in this conversation is the SaaS landscape as a whole is evolving and changing like crazy. I feel like I look back even 2 to 3 years ago and I don't even recognize sometimes where we are today. There's just been so much change in the last few years alone. So curious, we'll start with Ashley and then we'll move to Dorothy for this question. But as you think about the changing world of SaaS and the evolution and where you think we're headed next, how do GTMEs fit into that? Where are we kind of heading with the evolution of go-to-market engineering?
Yeah, there's a really good article. I'm gonna find it after I finish answering this question, and I'll drop it in the chat here. But there's a really good article, and essentially the punchline of it is that sales is becoming more of an engineering problem versus essentially a sales problem, where we have the ability to automate a lot of things that previously took hours and hours and hours of our time, and now we no longer have to do those things. And so it's kind of we're kind of seeing a pretty big shift in how salespeople used to sell, and now it's spending a lot more time with customers and using a lot more soft skills. So I think kind of where we're headed, at least on kind of like the revenue side of organizations, at least those are who are customer, it's going to be, the ability to think in systems, but also have those people skills to enable those around you and support those systems, getting them implemented. So yeah, I'll pass it over to Dorothy, but I'm going to go find this article because it's really good.
Yeah. I actually think this also helps answer Juliana's question of like, how do we future-proof this career against AI and while using AI too? I think it's, I think it's more about creating partnerships with AI, with other teams, and being able to bring all of that together. I think the past couple years too, with all like the tech bloat, there's been lots of conversations around consolidation, et cetera, et cetera. And then, I think the GTM engineer tends to like sit in the middle of that and like partner with the engineering teams, partner with sales teams, partner with marketing, et cetera, to like bring all of that into one place and be able to action on that.
Absolutely. Well, this is kind of a fun question. I'm going to start with you for this one, Tong, and we're going to talk a little bit about what each of you like most about being a GTM engineer at Clay. But Tong, bonus question for you. Can you tell folks, it seems like actually we have some good familiarity, which is awesome in the chat, but if folks don't know who Clay is, maybe give a brief overview about Clay. We will have some Clay resources. We actually have one that's pinned here in the event itself. So anybody that wants to get access, you have that. But Tong, if you can tell us a little bit about Clay and then what you enjoy most about your role, and then we'll pass it around.
Absolutely. I love this. I'm being put on the spot for my elevator pitch. Great. I would say that Clay is by far the most creative and flexible B2B growth tool. We differ from traditional tools in this space, given that we were built with the intention of being a marketplace. And so I think that our positioning naturally allows us to form authentic partnerships with a lot of other organizations in the space, and also with the companies that we serve in a really meaningful way. And you see that reflected in the strength of our community. So yeah, was that a satisfying? Give me one more on what Clay is.
See, that's why you need the sales background and the GTM engineering role, so you can do an elevator pitch on the spot. That was perfect. Dorothy, what about you? What do you enjoy most about your role at Clay?
I get to be a nerd with customers and prospects all at the same time, go to market, but then flip side, like, okay, how do we actually put this into play with like all these tools and connect all of this together? I'm a diehard ABM girl, and so like, man, this is the tool to make it all happen, in my head at least. And so yeah, being able to nerd out about these go-to-market strategies and how to put that into play, that's my favorite part of the job. And then tinkering in the background with code, and bam, it comes to life.
Love it. What about you, Ashley?
Yeah. So I think with my background, starting a company, I just love that on a day-to-day basis, I get to work with in between like 5 and 10 different organizations, helping them build their business. So it's sort of like an entrepreneur's dream job, as I think in P&Ls, and I get to help think about different strategies to grow revenue across industries, products, services, and it's really helped me become a better, I think, more well-rounded business person. So it's just like a fun challenge. There's always something new. You're always learning something new. You get to work with customers who are awesome and love you. So yeah, there's just a mixture of all like amazing elements of being people facing, but also the satisfaction and always learning of more hard and technical skills. So you just feel like you're constantly being pushed in a really good way.
Awesome. Love it. Well, what a natural progression point to also mention. I believe Clay is hiring for a certain role at the moment. And so
We are.
Oh, there it is, like magic for behind the scenes, dropping it like it's hot. Okay, so there is a job description here for the Clay go-to-market engineering role for those who are interested and want to join a stellar team like the one that we have today that's here on screen. So we'll have this available in Slack as well because we want to make sure nobody loses track of this application link. Clay is growing like crazy. You guys are crushing it. And as you know, Women in Sales only coolest companies. So obviously we're partnered with Clay. So whatever that tells you. But maybe Tong, can you just level tell us when you're hiring for go-to-market engineers, what are you looking for? It could be for internally or also what are companies in general looking for as they look across talent who are applying to these roles?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the main things that I think is worth mentioning is open-mindedness, curiosity, and the willingness to experiment. I think given how new the role is in general and how new of a role this might be for the organizations that you're applying for, including Clay, we're constantly experimenting. So it's like if you have enough faith and confidence in your idea to be able to speak on it and the ability and the confidence to take initiative, my gosh, those are critical skills that are going to take you far in all the other parts of this role as well. In addition to that, incredible communication. It could be the team that I'm on and the teams that I manage. Oftentimes, we can involve 5 other teammates or so to really work with customer to get this deal to close, to really prove the value up here. And so being able to actually be someone that other people want to work with and want to help is incredibly, incredibly necessary. And something that I also self-assess for, and y'all are getting a sneak peek as to one of our interview questions, I ask about what is your biggest professional mistake? And I preface this by saying, and I don't need you to tell me about how you fix it or how you clean after. I simply want to understand how you retell this part of your story. And so in that moment, I'm testing to see how is this person making meaning of their past mistakes? Are they able to take accountability? Are they able to take self-responsibility? Can they shake things off? Right. So I think that this plays into resilience, the ability, because oftentimes on calls, we might hear no a few times. That could be an invitation to dig deeper, and it could also be a respectful sign to protect your energy and move on. But you need to have your own discernment and intuition developed, like what's going to be best for you and what's going to be best for the business. So having the constant dialogue with yourself, being able to put that self-awareness into practice, so where it shows in the story of your professional journey. Right? We look for moments where you overcame challenges, took initiative, have spikes of your own greatness, did things that were above and beyond because you felt like it was the right thing to do. And I think those personalities really, really shine throughout the interview process. So, yeah.
Well said. And you got a sneak peek at an interview question. We love that. So thank you for that. We have so many good Q&A questions that it's making me panic because we only have 1 minute. But can someone take this question because I think it's perfect. Could you describe a typical day in the life as a GTM engineer? And then before you answer this, we are going to pop the other Q&A questions over into the GTM Engineering Slack channel, and we will take those questions over there. So whoever wants to field what a typical day in the life is, I think that's a perfect question.
Dorothy, you want to take it? You want me to take it?
You got this. Oh,
All
actually, maybe Tong from a manager's point of view and somebody who has been in the role. I think it would be helpful to understand like your perspective of this.
Oh, my best. I wake up in the morning, I do my visualization, say my affirmations.
Yes.
Bless my ancestors. No, but in a real sense, I think like morning mindset, choosing how you're going to approach the day is actually really important to set your own tone of that day. Otherwise, it'll get away from you. So that has been something that over time in my own professional journey, that's been something for me to anchor in how I want to feel. And then from there, hopefully I've done a good job preparing the night before, where I have my priority tasks, the customers I need to follow up with, my pre-call notes for the net new calls I'm joining that day, and what other kind of desk activities I need to do for table builds, coordinating with the solutions team on builds that they're supporting me with, et cetera, and some admin stuff on actual moving contracts and paperwork through. So I basically will then chunk my day based off of the different selling activities that I need to do. And every day looks like a slight different of those chunks. And we do our best to have fun throughout. Yeah.
Love it. Well said. Right on the dot too. Okay. This time went by so fast. I feel like we could have talked for another couple hours and we would have all been delighted. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, but this party is running over to the Women in Sales Slack community. So it's not over yet. We will share out the roles, the open role that the Clay team has so that you all have access and can apply. We would love to see more amazing women from our community apply for this role. And then in addition, we can move some of the Q&A questions over to that channel as well. So join the go-to-market engineering channel in the Women in Sales Slack community. We'll see you over there. And thank you everyone who joined us today for the thoughtful questions. There were so many good Q&A questions. And thank you to the Clay crew for co-hosting this event and providing the most stellar panel. So thank you to all three of you for being amazing panelists. We're so grateful.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. What a
Take
pleasure.
care, everyone. We'll see you at the next one.